Hello, my name is Kevin Karsnia, and welcome to this presentation on Jung's levels of consciousness. And today I will be discussing how this all relates to personal and professional growth. So many of you have probably heard of Jung before and maybe discussed him in a psychology class along with Freud. He did collaborate for a number of years with Freud and was heavily influenced by him. However, later on in his career, he did distance himself from Freud and develop his own set of theories. In addition to Freud, he was heavily influenced by Greek mythology and Greek philosophy, as well as existential philosophy and Nietzsche. So he has a very complex set of theories and thoughts, so he can be very hard to interpret. But we'll do our best today on trying to explain what he had to say. Many of you might be familiar with some of his terminology. We use a lot of it in the present day. Anytime you say that you may be an introverted person or an extroverted person, alter ego, archetypes, these are all Jungian language that he either developed or repurposed for his own uses. Here we have the Jungian model. On the right, you see the diagram, and the psyche is the sum of all these psychic processes, whereas the self is the sum of the psyche. The self is what we'll later talk about individuation, and the self drives the individuation process. Now, the center of consciousness would be the ego, and the ego is where the identity is formed, your thoughts are organized, and your feelings, also the formation of I in your personality. The persona is your public mass, what you choose to show other people about yourself in public. It's heavily influenced by social norms. Also influenced by social norms would be the shadow. It's considered the dark side of your personality, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's negative at all times. So before discussing each level of consciousness, it's probably best to define consciousness in this context. So as humans, we are sentient beings with the ability to feel and perceive. Consciousness, therefore, is what you are aware of at the present moment. So hopefully all of you are aware of this presentation and what is happening on the slide. Collective consciousness, the collective would be humanity in this case, and humanity interpretation of the world and how it acts upon it. So creation of social norms, social institutions, and things of that nature. Everybody in society or in the collective consciousness contributes to it, and everybody is influenced by it as well. So the collective unconscious is similar in that it involves all of humanity, except for it is not at the level of awareness. It is unconscious. This is also the place where we access our archetypes, and we'll get into what those are in a while as well. Archetypes help guide our directions in life. So the personal consciousness is where logical reasoning and emotions and intuition, if for any reason we were to have access to everything at once, we would be overloaded, and this would make us unbalanced. Our psyche would be damaged, and we would experience things like neurosis and things of that nature. So the personal consciousness acts as a filter to keep our perceptions and memories organized. The personal unconscious, this is where thoughts and feelings and memories that were once conscious become unconscious, whether through they're forgotten or they are repressed. Perhaps it's a tragic or difficult event and you repress it. These thoughts and memories can be accessed through the unconscious by through dreams and dream analysis, as well as therapy. So one of the most important things for Jung was maintaining a healthy balance, and that of your um, unconscious and conscious self, and that happens through transformative experiences. You can think of a transformative experience similar to enlightenment or self actualization. He describes it as individuation. And individuation is the process of becoming an individual. This is all inside you already, and you can choose to not accept the individuation process. However, you would be denying your most authentic self. So the individuation process is natural, and although you're not always aware of everything at the present moment, there are things that you can help move the process along. And that involves bringing light into dark, dark into lightness, and that would be your shadow. So bringing shadow, which is in the unconscious, into the conscious realm. And the shadow is contains undesirable characteristics, or maybe they're positive characteristics that we choose to repress. So, for instance, there might be a creative side to yourself, and due to social norms or some other, maybe you have some political thoughts and you repress these things rather than express them because society or your family, whatever social norms tells you those are wrong. And this just means that you're being inauthentic. It's not healthy to repress those things, because then you will express them in other ways, maybe through anger, anxiety, depression. So it's important to be your most authentic self and work on integrating those parts of your shadow into consciousness. It's also where you project certain things about yourself onto others that you may not like, and this is unhealthy as well. The part of the psyche that helps the individuation process is the self. So here we have archetypes, which are universal images that are found in the collective unconscious. They are manifested through events, figures, and images. Certain events would be birth, death, adolescence, marriage. There are many different types. And here I used the hero's journey through movies. So you can see this might be evidence for Jung's thoughts on the collective unconscious, that we have separate movies, but they have very similar themes of the hero's journey, a young man, often not having parents, is called to a journey and mentored by an wise old man. So they're all very similar when you think about it. So are very much superhero films and other things as well. So also archetypal images are the shadow, the self, the anima, and the animus. There are actually countless types of archetypes. And these are what we access through the individuation process to become that whole person, to become our most authentic self. So my individuation process, as an individual, I think when you, I don't necessarily agree with everything Jung has to say about this, but I do think there are some important things you can take from this, and that is the persona and how you portray yourself in society. And a lot of it is social media nowadays, and I think spending less time on social media and worried about what others think of you or how you portray yourself is probably healthier than being on there all the time and worried about, did I do something today better than someone else, or is my life more important? So I think I don't spend that much time anyways on social media, but I think there's a healthy, happy medium where most people can spend less time. Also integrating parts of the shadow into consciousness, such as creativity. I don't think I have enough creative outlets right now, so I think that can sometimes lead to periods of depression and other things. And this is, I don't, maybe so much suppressed by societal norms, but it is suppressed. So I think there are healthier ways of expressing it, whether it's taking time to, draw something or create something. Uh, Another way would be becoming a more genuine and compassionate person. And I think I try to do that, which I'll talk about in the professional life, through becoming a teacher and working in classrooms to help students. So, how this relates to professional life is through teaching. And uh, you see the archetypal image of the old wise man, and that's kind of a teacher archetype. And uh, doing research on this, reading Dr. Johnson's thoughts on reflective teaching, and also there's a line of teaching called archetypal pedagogy, and it really focuses on becoming a reflective teacher, um, determining if the students are actually learning and using research-based theory and teaching strategies, as well as the most important probably is how you're teaching aligned with your teaching philosophy. So just remembering that education is not entirely intellectual, so you're not creating little machines to go about their everyday lives, but there's more meaning to it than just that, although it is an important aspect as well. So part of the individuation process would be you start at the collective, move to the individual, and then back to the collective. So here we see the old man. So he was once a student, part of the collective, then became a teacher, part of the as an individual, and then is giving back to society as a teacher. So that's how I see the professional individuation process take place. And that is not only teaching students the curriculum, that is teaching them things like growth can happen through conflict, and that success often happens after failure. So reiterating to students that failure is not the end of the world, that things